to your go-to Detroit Pistons podcast, The Pistons Pulse, co-hosted by me, Bryce Simon of Motor City Hoops, a former D1 hooper and current teacher, husband, and father of 3 amazing kids.
And I'm go for the second Pistons beat writer for the Detroit Free Press. I'm trying to keep it together, man.
O2 finds this so funny that my voice is beat up this bad. He has not stopped laughing since before we started recording. So hopefully all of the listeners can keep it together and bear with me for one episode here. Wes deserves a shout out, I think is what I'd normally go to here. Him and Blake Silverman over on the Pin Down on the Detroit Bad Boys YouTube channel. I'm not shouting out Omari on the Free Press today. No, make sure you're reading Omari on the Detroit Free Press. And then, of course, the Motor City Hoops Substack, which is free to subscribe to. Dropped the Jaden Ivey defensive video breakdown earlier today on Tuesday, where my voice wasn't nearly as bad yet. So this came from 5th and 6th grade boys basketball practice today. My son got yelled at a lot. I'm sure he loved that. So Doc Rivers, I love it. I don't know if that's a compliment or not.
No, you're just giving Doc Rivers energy right now. I'm done.
Hey, at least my voice has some sort of substance to it where people recognize it. I'm always jealous of how rich yours comes through the mic. But Detroit Pistons basketball, man, 2 big wins, a blowout win over the Hawks after a long stint off. And then the really exciting road win against Boston on Monday night. Just your thoughts, Omari, in terms of what we've seen from this team over the last 2 and specifically the one on Monday.
Big win last night. Obviously, I feel like that game felt like the closest maybe to a playoff game they've had all season, just based on not just being a national game, a Peacock game. I know people say that Peacock doesn't count as a national game, but I think it does because everybody has access to it. So just and obviously, I think they obviously have great crowds at the Garden, and those games between those 2 teams, even a couple of years ago, still tended to be really good ones. But Pistons stepped up to the moment. It was pretty much a grind fest all the way down. And, they got a little bit of a lead toward the end. Boston comes back because, of course, they were. I think you could just feel that they were going to hit a couple threes after they went, 1 for 18 in the second and third quarters. You just knew that they were just going to hit a few in the fourth because they're not going to shoot that bad all game. And then for Cade to kind of walk it down the way he did. And not just that, and we'll talk about these guys, but the bench kind of held it down to 4 in the second half too, was huge. So one of the best wins they've had this season, just the way that they were able to close that one out, walk the Celtics down, despite valiant efforts from Jaylen Brown, who had a really phenomenal game, I thought, and Derek White as well. Just great game, great win. I think that's just another win that shows why they're number 1 in the East right now.
Yeah, I think this Boston team really presents them with some tough things, some challenges. The way they shoot the 3-pointer in terms of the volume, that really puts a lot of pressure on your defense. The Jaylen Brown matchup is particularly troublesome for them because they have to use Tobias Harris on him in the starting lineup. Boston doesn't turn the ball over, 0-2. Which is something Detroit really leans into on the defensive end, is getting turnovers, not just to get stops, but then to get into transition. All of those things can give Detroit trouble. I think this would be a fun playoff matchup for Detroit as well. But I thought this game had that feel. And like you said, Detroit kind of, they rose to the occasion. And I like that some of these games come down to the clutch. It would be nice, like Atlanta, when they just blow the team out and it's super easy. But we saw this team have to get stops down the stretch. And we saw Cade Cunningham, the one dribble move, he went behind the back, spin move, step back, and he created so much separation on a very good defender in Derek White and just stuck that mid-range. Really, really tough move. They got the stops. They got the jumpers to go down, and they sealed this thing on the road, which I think is really impressive.
Yeah, that was a crazy shot. That's one of the best shots he's had, just as far as not just the stakes to close a game out, but the sheer difficulty of it. And that spin, I tweeted, I feel like his spin's becoming a signature move from him. But, Derek White was thinking, spin, he's going to the rim, and, Cade just had the extra wrinkle in there. Nope, I'm actually going to get into my pocket, right here inside the key where, it seems like he shoots 100%. Yeah, just insane shot right there. I agree. Yeah, Boston, I think it's a tough matchup for them. As we saw the last game they played in November. They knocked down 23 pointers. It was just like a really marginal loss. Like the Pistons were just a split second late on their closeouts for some of those, gave up a few too many. I think had a few too many turnovers. But last night, the Pistons shot well from three. I thought they defended well, especially in the second and third quarters. They also took care of the ball. They only had 10 turnovers. Boston had 13, so it was low on both sides. But the Pistons, they forced turnovers, but they're also turnover prone. So if you're not going to force turnovers, then you can't be turnover prone. And they took care of that. And then just the contributions from top to bottom, which I think showcased their depth. And that's another area that they have over Boston as well, is that they go, like 11, 12 deep right now. And Boston's maybe 8, 9 on a good day. So just a lot of the Pistons' strengths, I thought, were on display last night. And then they also found a way to mitigate their weaknesses as well.
I mean, we've talked about the clutch play from this Pistons team. They have the 5th most clutch minutes in the NBA, and they have the 3rd best offensive rating in those minutes, Omari. I mean, that's huge for this team. We can talk about the 3-point shooting and all of that, and I think it's important. And it seems like it should be more of an issue in those moments, right? In the clutch, when things get tight and the game slows down. But a 130 almost offensive rating, the defense stays really good, and their 2nd overall net rating for the Pistons in the clutch right now is just incredible. You mentioned the turnovers. It can be an issue, but even there, they're 13th in turnover percentage in the clutch. So just a lot of really good stuff. And we're starting to get to a sample size where this stuff can be believable. I'm not saying that they're always going to be this good in the clutch, but it's not like we're talking about 3 games or 10 minutes. We're starting to get to a sample size all around. Like, even if you just look at their overall advanced numbers on the season, this team is 5th in net rating, offensive rating, they're 9th, defensive rating, they're 2nd. We talked about this. When you can be top 10 in both offensive and defensive rating, you are a team that is legit. Like, you are real. And that is what are we, 26 games in now for this team that is 21-5? It continues to show exactly who they are.
Yeah, like you said, that sample size is growing. I mean, we're basically a third of the way through the season at this point. And just what they sustained has been really, really impressive. I think they've now won 6 of their last 7. And that's after they won 13 straight, right? 21-5, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's pretty real. You still got 50-odd games left, but you're just building a sample size over teams that are pretty good. Like, this is a good Boston team. And I talked to Cade about this the other week, but he said one thing they learned to get to this point is just that good teams make the least mistakes. And I think that's been part of their approach, is that they're not panicking. They're not overthinking things. They're just making the simple right plays. And they're just locking in. They're locking in and, doing what they need to do. They were certainly mistake prone in those moments in the past, and this season they haven't been.
And I do think the Boston win stands out to me because of the way Boston attacks them. Boston attacks Duncan Robinson from the very beginning of the game.
Relentlessly.
They start running actions to attack him. And I feel like they try to pack the paint as much as anybody and force Detroit into taking 3-point attempts. Cade had a really good night from the 3-point line. He all of a sudden is up to 33% from the 3-point line. Obviously, you want it to be more than that, but considering he was under 30% not too long ago, a really good night from him. I want to stay with Cade here for just a second. Omari, this guy is averaging 27, 9, 6, a steal and a half, just under a block. He's at 3.7 turnovers. We talk about his turnovers all the time. He's under 4. That's all I've wanted from Cade, is under 4. He's getting to the free throw line 7.5 times. He's at over 80% there. Is there something that stands out to you more than anything else, like from the season as a whole, maybe recently, maybe anything specifically from that Boston game?
Yeah, when he knocked down, those 2 early 3-pointers, one, I think Jordan Walsh went over his screen and he just kind of stepped into it. And then the second one was a step back. And I think he had another step back in the second quarter. The only thing that went through my mind was the only thing Cade hasn't done this season is hit 3-pointers at a high clip. And if he's doing that, then there's essentially nothing else you can do, because he's already just been so effective in every other aspect of the game this season. You mentioned the turnovers, which are down. You mentioned the steals and blocks, which are up. He he's at 2.5 stocks per game, which is pretty elite for a guard. Like only guys like Shea are like higher than that. Like that's, especially for everything he's doing on the offensive end to still be able to bring it on that end as well. And then just the scoring from every level, right? Like he's getting to the line. That was a weakness for him previously, and now he's getting there at a much better rate. Killing teams from mid-range, which that's where he prefers to operate. And then you add the three-point shooting on top of that. He was 6 for 10. He didn't force it at all. They were robbing from the flow of the offense. If he could just mix that in, then, I mean, there's really nothing else you can do, because that was the only thing you could say about him before last night, is that he hadn't had a night like that where he just really got the three ball going. And and those 6 made three-pointers were a season high.
Yeah, it was massive. That was a huge game for him. And especially, I'm sure he wanted to make up for the missed free throw the last time they were in Boston, right? Where he gets to the free throw line, makes the first 2, misses the third one. And it's really impressive, the season he's putting together. I think I'm going to do something over on Game Theory. I talk about this all the time, that I think Cade is one of the best primary option defenders in the NBA. And whenever I say that, I mean, he's a primary offensive option, and we're ranking those guys defense. So Shea, Luka, Giannis, Cade, Tyrese Maxey, Donovan Mitchell. And I want to really sit down and just look at the highest usage guys in the NBA and see where everybody ranks on the defensive end when you just have those guys. And so I'm interested to see where Cade actually ends up being with that, because I continue to think of him as a very good defender when you factor in the offensive load that he has taken on. Anything else from Cade before we move on to maybe some of the other tertiary, secondary guys that obviously deserve some love and some, talk about as well?
Yeah, where's Cade in your MVP list?
Yeah,
right now, because I think there's a clear 1 and 2, and then for me, like I think I have Cade 3. He doesn't have an Austin Reeves or a LeBron to flank him, and I know the Lakers don't have too much depth otherwise, but the team's 21-5. I feel like he's got as good of an argument as anyone.
So I will be honest, we did this a couple weeks ago. I had Shea and Jokic 1, 2. I had Doncic, Giannis, and I had Cade 5th. So Cade he was first team All-NBA for me, but he was 5th. At that time, Giannis had played the games to be in the conversation. And that's what's always fluid with this conversation, too. At that time, Wembanyama was not part of the conversation. Obviously, that game is going on right now as we record, that Spurs-Knicks game. I mean, I think Jalen Brunson is also in the realm of this conversation. But I think when you're talking about first team All-NBA, I think there's 6 guys, depending on is Giannis in games played wise? Is Wemby in games played? I think there's 6, maybe 7 guys, and Cade is one of those guys. He's playing at a level that's as good as anybody. And the fact that Detroit is winning at the rate they are still puts him right there in that conversation, which is incredible. I mean, I thought he was going to be All-NBA again. You're talking about a perennial top 10 guy potentially at this point. That is what your team needs. That's what your franchise needs to be in the running, to have a chance year in and year out. And he's doing that. He is in that realm right now. And as you've mentioned, that's without shooting well from 3. That was like the first game where I was like, man, the 3-pointer was really a weapon for him. We've seen it do it in the fourth quarter. Again, mentioning the defense, where you mentioned you'd have him 3rd. So right there with Doncic, Giannis, those guys.
Yeah, I have him right there. You're the undisputed number 1 guy on the second best team in the NBA, the best team in the East. I think that's always been the pretty baseline standard for how you determine that race. And Giannis, I think you can make an argument for Giannis over him. But, now he's out with the calf injury, and Milwaukee's faltering. So you kind of have to see how that ends up. And Luka, I mean, he's averaging 39 and 9 or something along those lines. So you can't say Luka's not kind of what he is. And I know Brunson's having a great season. There's other guys who are having great seasons, but Cade's having an all-around great season on both ends. He's been clutch, and he's the undisputed number 1 guy on the second best team in the league. To me, that's just top 3 resume.
I love it. Who do you want to go to next? I mean, we have a lot of options. I do want to save Jaden Ivey so we can get into a kind of bigger conversation and really dive into his game. But Jalen Duren didn't have his best game. I thought he came out and was awesome to start the game, and then, ended up with 6-3. He did have 2 steals, 2 blocks. We had Isaiah Stewart, Ron Holland, Javonte Green, a lot of different guys. I want to talk about Caris Lavert at some point. Is there one that stands out to you that you would like to go to first?
Let's talk about Javonte Green just because we haven't talked about him as much.
Woo! Right?
Woo.
Is that, I don't know it. I don't listen to the broadcast with all due respect to Blaha and Kelser. Like they do a great job. I just don't listen to broadcasts in general. I have no idea what this means. So can you explain to me why this? I don't understand. So somebody explain to me what the nickname is.
I just know that his nickname is Woo. I don't know the lore behind Woo. I just know it's been his nickname for a while, like not a recent thing. I think to me, it's like the noise you make when you see that dunk he had, like that steal and dunk that made everybody stand up.
I stood up in the living room, Omar. Like I usually don't get excited with stuff. Like I don't react a whole lot. I definitely reacted, and I even put in my game notes. I'm not even mad about the technical. Like, it wasn't a big moment, but like, do you, Javonte, like, go crazy. You deserve it.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's just the type of plays he could come up with. He's got a knack for hitting threes when they need him. I think the defensive intensity, like the rate he creates turnovers, just the way he meshes with that second unit in general. Like, you get him on the floor with Ron, and sometimes you may mix P. Reed in there. Sometimes it might be Stu, like whoever. It just seems like they kind of harness this chaotic energy. And like Javonte really thrives when they just need a 5-minute injection of defensive energy, defensive playmaking, whatever it may be. In a lot of ways, he's like the guard version of Paul Reed to me. They to me, they kind of just check the same boxes of like having that innate ability, like no matter how much or how little you're out there, like you're just going to give 110% and you're just going to create havoc somehow, some way. Like he was huge last night, and he's good for that, like a couple games a week where he just comes in and like you could just feel the momentum shift a bit because of how hard he plays.
Yeah, I mean, he got on the floor late in this game. So after that Cade mid-range bucket, the one with the sick dribble move and all of that, I put in my notes, a stop here puts you in a great position to win. Who forces the turnover? Javonte Green. Like, just a really good game from him, and he was trusted defensively late in the game. I'm about to say something I don't feel good about because I love Dennis Jenkins. I want to be clear. I love Dennis Jenkins, and he's been incredible this year. I do wonder, in this very specific role that you just outlined of 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 2 possessions here, 2 possessions there, maybe you don't even play in this game. I do wonder if Javonte's better suited for that role, Omari. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I do wonder if he's better suited to be the 10th guy that's just a little bit of rotation minutes here and there. And Dennis is actually better suited for, Cade's out tonight. You're going to go play 25, 28 minutes and be like real rotation, get in a groove, get in a rhythm. Does that make sense? I do wonder if Javonte's better suited for that role than Dennis is.
Yeah, it seems like, Dennis just isn't able to get into a rhythm in that little bit of time. And that's like a challenging thing to do, I think, as a point guard, especially a young point guard. And especially when you've kind of gotten into this, rhythm of playing extended minutes, right? Like that's like a lot of things that separate the effectiveness of bench players really is, can you just summon it immediately when the team needs it? And there's a learning curve to that I think Dennis has to learn. Yeah, I really do think his slump is just a product of how his roles changed, how he's, just not playing as much or getting the ball like he was previously. And I do think Javonte can inject you with a bit more of that. And like you said, like if there's a night where, J.I. or Cade or whoever is hurt, then, you can put Dennis in there. He could give you like 25 minutes and really make plays. But yeah, there's a learning curve there for him, figuring out how to be effective and just whatever slice of minutes he's able to get at any given moment.
Yeah, Fly Monk 321. Javonte is much better in limited minutes than most players. There is a knack to that. There is an art to that. It is not easy to do. Obviously, I didn't play anywhere close to this level, but I don't think I could have done it. I finally had to do it my last year in college because of my injury, and I struggled with it. It's just something that's really tough to adjust to. And I do think you bring up a good point. Doing it as a point guard, I think getting into the rhythm and flow of the game is even more important than this off-ball wing role that Javonte plays. And that wasn't a knock on Dennis as much as it was just a like, hey, we really should appreciate what Javonte's doing because it's not easy to do it in that role. Let's go to break. When we come back, we can still touch on Jalen Duren, Ron Holland, Isaiah Stewart, any of those guys before we get into a deeper dive on Jaden Ivey.
All right, we're back with segment 2. Somebody actually just brought it up here. Michael Dompier, 44.
Yes.
Am I wrong? Or has Caris Lavert been pretty darn good? Yeah, let's talk about Caris. Like, I feel like this team on certain nights just needs somebody who could come in and get you some buckets and not be a negative on the other end. And that's been Caris for him some nights. Like last night, he came in. I thought he was huge in the second half. 15 points in the second half, like timely buckets. He and J.I., I thought, like meshed pretty well together at the end of the third quarter. Just kind of getting some things going after Cade sat. Like there's a role for Caris on this team. And I think on certain nights like last night, like he certainly comes in and he just feels that need for one more bucket getter.
It's funny. I feel like I was kind of crushing Caris Lavert early in his games, and the fans came at me for being too harsh on him, which I think they ended up being right. And then now I feel like it's flipped the other way, that a lot of the fan base I see doesn't want him in the rotation. And why is Lavert playing so many minutes? And, maybe it is the Dennis Jenkins thing. Maybe it's the Jaden Ivey thing. I want to be clear. Mr. Ray says, just want to note it for future reference, I was a fan of the Caris Lavert signing. I thought it was a good signing as well. Here's the thing that stood out. If Caris Lavert's going to shoot 40% from 3, he's going to be on the court. That is valuable because he does do other things. I think I agree that you don't want him as like the Cade role as the primary initiator, ball handler, playmaker. But if he's going to knock down shots, and then I think he can be impactful defensively. There are games where he has been impactful on the defensive end as well. Just another guy that in his 20 minutes, I think is doing a really nice job. He's 47% overall, 42% from 3, gets a rebound and a half, a little bit of disruption. I don't know that he's been quite as good as what I'd hoped. I don't know that he's scoring quite as much. I don't know, at some point, Wes, maybe we revisit our preseason expectations and kind of see where those land compared to where things are at now. But I think he's been close to what I thought this team needed. And I do think he's been good overall.
Yeah. I mean, this team is short a shooter. I think we've seen on some nights. So like you said, if he's going to come in and knock down timely threes like he did last night, he was 2 of 5 from 3. That's absolutely something that this team needs. And, like some of these guys, I think are still kind of figuring out, exactly what's needed from them on any given night. But when Caris just goes out and he's just like, you know what, I'm just going to knock down some shots and take advantage of the opportunities I have. Yeah, they absolutely need that for 20 minutes a night. And I think for the second unit, which is a little bit more chaos and like defense oriented, like you just need somebody who could come in and get you a couple of timely buckets when you need them. Yeah, I've been a fan of them this season. I think there's been a lot of good on both ends. And yeah, I mean, look, they're 21-5 because they have, guys who can give you what you need on any given night, whether that's Caris give you a couple of buckets or Javante doing what he does or, Ron Holland just being a spark plug. They have guys who can step in and give you different things. And some nights that's absolutely just been buckets.
Just saw the super chat come in. Thank you so much. We will get to that when we talk about Jaden Ivey. Again, I kind of want to get through the other guys before we get to that. I do want to touch on Jalen Duren just real quick. Last 8 games, Omari, he's at 14 points, under 10 rebounds. I think the defensive disruption, playmaking stuff is still kind of the same. He does have a negative assist to turnover ratio. I don't want to say concerns. Obviously, like coming off this game, it would be easy to like freak out. It was probably his worst game, the least productive game of the season. He's still at 18-11 on the season. Anything you've seen, I guess I will say concerned or anything like that with Jalen Duren? For me, the only thing is we've seen him be successful off the dribble and attacking. I think now as film gets out on that, I think we have seen teams be able to take it away a little bit and it not be as successful at as high of rate. So I do think he'll just have to be a little bit more deliberate with when he attacks, when he doesn't. And I also think Detroit needs to be deliberate in not forgetting that he is an elite play finisher in ball screens with Cade Cunningham, out of the dunker spot, and in those play types as well, like making sure he still gets those quote unquote easy buckets as well.
Yeah, like you mentioned earlier, I thought JD came out assertive last night and was really good to start. I thought he played with a lot of force inside and, with Boston's front court. I think on paper, that's a matchup that favors him. Like, they don't have amazing depth or size at the center position. And then as the game went on, it seems like they were just able to get him out of the game a little bit more. And ultimately, that was fine, because other guys came in and had pretty good nights. And Duran, like you said, he still, I think, made a defensive impact for one of the boards. Not a bad game for him by any means, but teams are a bit more aware of what they could do. And I think they've been doing a bit more to kind of take away those opportunities for him or from him. And I would like to still see him try to force the issue a little bit more at times, especially when Cade sits. And there are some mismatches there that he could probably try to exploit more, if he goes for it. There's probably some things they could do to make it a little bit easier for him as well, and maybe not be as reliant on that, pick and roll, lap threat with Cade, kind of getting him going early. So he's working through a couple things, but again, I think that's just the natural progression of, when you come out as strong as he did, and then teams begin to figure out how to make things a bit more uncomfortable. So if he started off really good, I do wish he had maintained that level of assertiveness throughout the entire game. Thoughts
on Ron Holland, Isaiah Stewart? I do want to point out, I don't think Isaiah Stewart's getting enough love for his scoring production as much as, and this is I'm as guilty as anybody, but we talk about his defense, and rightfully so. But if you look at per 100 possessions, he's having the best scoring season of his career. Per 100 possessions, he's averaging 22 points. Now, I'm not saying that if he had more minutes and whatever, he'd be averaging that, but he's shooting, almost the best field goal percentage. He's still at 40% from three. His 2-point percentage is the best of his career. Obviously, the rebounding is there, the defense, but man, it kind of took me by surprise looking at the numbers the other day. He's actually double digits in points per game at 10 right now in just 22 minutes. So I do think this should be noted along with the defense and just kind of the heart and soul. And I think good friend Keith Smith had he made a point to say this was a positive tweet, but he said Isaiah Stewart is that guy that every other fan base likes to cheer against or annoys the other fan bases or something along those lines. And he very much meant in a positive way. But any thoughts on Stu or even Ron Holland, who I think is the wing version of that in terms of the energy giver when he gets on the court?
Yeah, I always said Stu, the best version of him is the type of center you'll never be able to play off of the floor in the playoffs, just because he's so versatile defensively and, especially when he's got the three ball in his arsenal. He finds a way to fit in offensively as well. And I think this year, the way he's been able to make it work at the 4 and 5 is just a testament to how much his game is expanded overall. You don't see it every single night, but there are nights this season where he kind of steps up offensively and can really make things happen. And that's not just his growth as a 3-point shooter, but just his game feel. I feel like on offense in general has improved. We even saw last year just his finishing kind of go back up after it had declined. And you also just match that with his blocks going up, which he said is just him understanding the timing a lot better than he did, knowing the jump after and not before. It just shows that the game slowed down for him. I think we're seeing that in a variety of ways this season. It's been fun to just kind of see his growth there. And then Ron, I think he had a little bit of a slump, maybe mid-November. And I think the last 2 weeks, he's been back to doing Ron Holland things, which has been great.
Wes says him and Blake compared Stu having a little Bill Laimbeer to his game. So just real quick, first, the scoring around the rim, according to Basketball Reference, he's at 75% from 0 to 3 feet. Last year was a career high at 68%. And before that, his highest was 64. That's a massive jump. And I do think part of that is how much he's grown with his left hand. Second quick point, O2. This is why on-off cannot always be trusted. Do you want to guess what the on-off says Isaiah Stewart is for the Detroit Pistons?
I'm not sure what it is, but I know it's not accurate to his actual impact.
Negative 3.9. It says that, and that's why plus minus, even over a sample this large, it still doesn't tell the whole story. I don't know how you could watch Detroit Pistons basketball and not know or feel, I shouldn't say no, but not feel that he is a positive for this team. Now, everybody can view the game the different way. Everybody can have different opinions. Maybe people watch and see some of his limitations and say whatever. And that's fine. But through how many ever games he's played this year, I would be hard pressed to find a way to convince me that he has been a negative for this team. And so I only point that out to say that plus minuses, on, off, stuff like that, even with a larger sample, can at times still not tell the whole story. I do think it's probably time to move to Ausar Thompson. We have a comment here, offense game lacking aggression like Amin is concerning. So I think that's saying lacking the aggression that Amin plays with on the offensive end. I do feel like we haven't seen crazy growth, at least from Ausar offensively. To that comment, O2, I just watched a Rockets game today, and my immediate thought was, man, Amin just looks more polished offensively than Ausar does. And that's not a knock on Ausar, and I don't mean to always have them competing against each other, but I don't know this is a huge concern. I do think it is at least worth noting that I don't think we've seen much of a jump thus far from him on the offensive end.
Yeah, I thought we saw a lot more aggression from Ausar earlier in the season, really at the beginning of the season when they were down a few guys and he was being asked to handle the ball a bit more and kind of be more of that primary guy with the ball. You know, he had 16 shot attempts in 2 of his first 3 games. And before he went down with injury, this sort of through the first 10 games of the season, he had at least 10 shots in 7 of those games since he came back, which is, I believe, 11 or 12 game sample size. Like, he's only taken double-digit shot attempts once, and that was 12 shots. Before then, I think he had 2 games with 16 and then 2 with 14. So to me, that speaks to guys coming back. Like, Caris is back, and J.I. is back, and Dennis is in the rotation, and you're not the primary guy like you were initially. And I think he's kind of figuring out sometimes how aggressive should I be in any particular moment, or do I need to be doing something else? Well, I'm just not seeing the same decisiveness I think he had earlier in the year. So maybe he's been a bit more, I still think he's been good, especially when you account for what he does defensively and, just what he opens up for this team in transition. But like mixed in with that, like, I think you do see moments where he's just not operating with the same decisiveness he had before his injury.
Yeah. So Sharon Dalton says, Bryce, you did a good job breaking down Ausar's offensive game. Thank you. That is over on the Substack. And I do think I went back and looked at his 100 most recent field goal attempts at that time and really just looked like I do think there's an offensive game there where he can be successful. The very first possession in that, I've already talked about this on the pod, but is this what I call the stampede attack. This is what this has changed Ron Holland's offensive game. Everybody remembers when Ron Holland used to travel all the time on this catch. Ron Holland has figured that out. He had a big one against Boston last night. I think Ausar could do that more. And so I do think maybe there was this, maybe coming into the year, you always do a good job of bringing this up. Maybe coming into the year, Ausar thought he was going to be playing more with the ball in his hands. And then now that's not happening as much. He's having to adjust back a little bit to cutting off the ball, getting out in transition, offensive rebounds, stuff like that. Like, I think the production, let me look at the per 36, Omari, but I think the production, even per 100, it's a little bit less, but it's not crazy. So it's not like he's he's worse than he was last year. It just hasn't taken a step forward. And I think that's what is a little bit, again, I don't want to say concerning, but I think you would have liked to see a little bit of growth, and we just haven't seen that yet.
Yeah. Again, I think, and his role is different from Amin's too. I think Amin is asked to have more of an initiatory role, like with that starting unit. Like, I'm just curious to see what a version of Ausar would look like if the role he had early in the season were just like a permanent, like when you're on the court, especially apart from Cade, like you're the one that's initiating and everybody else is playing off of you. Like, I just wonder how his approach to the game would change and if there would be, like, I feel like he thinks, like sometimes guys play as though they're like thinking about what they should be doing. And I think we're seeing Ausar think a bit more when early on it's, well, I have the ball. I don't have to think, I can do whatever I want. Like, I just think there's like a mental aspect there that sometimes players have to work through.
And I do think that this is an important topic for the Pistons, and I think it is something they should emphasize, and I'm sure JB and his staff will, but this is kind of the stuff you can do when you have built this record. This is something you can do, is like you can give an emphasis on incorporating him into the offense and finding the things that are going to make him successful and all of that. Zach Yoder brings up last year, people were dogging on Duren around this time, and look at the steps he took this year. Give the twin time and opportunity. That confidence will build and he will shine. Listen, nobody's like saying trade Ausar Thompson or anything like that. I think it's fair to at least point these things out. I will also say, this time last year, I was calling for Jalen Duren to get benched. Like I was saying, set him out, make him watch Isaiah Stewart play really hard and figure it out. But to your point, Duren did figure it out, didn't take that. This is a little bit different because that was more like defensive energy things. Nobody questions Ausar Thompson's energy, and I'm definitely not questioning his defense. I think he's first team all defense right now. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. I think as you've incorporated other guys, getting Jaden Ivey back in, this new role of Jalen Duren, maybe now they can focus, even somebody like Duncan Robinson, they've had to figure out his role. Maybe now they can place a little bit of emphasis on figuring that out for Ausar Thompson as well. Let's go to break. When we come back, let's go ahead and jump into the aforementioned Jaden Ivey, who we've now seen 11 games from.
All right, we are back with segment 3. Jaden Ivey, like you said, he's played 11 games. Obviously, still getting his legs back under him. His minutes for the most part have been between 15 and 20 per game. But he's had good moments as well. So far he's averaging 8 points, 2.6 rebounds, 1.5 assists in exactly 15 minutes per game. But he played about 21 last night, which was the first time he cracked 20 minutes. And then the game before that, he played about 19. So slowly starting to trickle up. Bryce, just what's been your overall impression of what you've seen from him, and then also last night as well?
Yeah, so, just to plug once more, I have a Jaden Ivey defensive breakdown over on the Substack. That dude got about 4 mid-range jumpers hit right in his face. A couple of them are really good defense, and then he stayed with it and came up with 2 big stops, one particularly late in the game, or I guess it was middle of the fourth quarter, on Jaylen Brown. But I really wanted to look at his defense because that is the identity of this team. Like, to me, the identity is the defensive end, the energy they play with. And then right now it's Cade is that dude on the offensive end. And then other guys are making progress and all of that. And so to me, every player that is a part of this organization. Thank you, Derek. Derek Brown says best Pistons podcast in the world. Appreciate that very much and your support. To me, that always starts with a player. What are they on the defensive end? Can you lift that up? Are they going to have to protect you? Whatever. We know that, with Duncan Robinson, that's a question. So I always like to watch that with Jaden Ivey. Offensively, Omari, mixed bag. We've seen him knock down threes, which is good. He's at 33% right now. Sample size not enough to necessarily know, one miss, one make can sway that quite a bit. The paint stuff has been concerning because we still see some of the same issues. I'm trying to be patient and let him kind of really integrate and wait until we see him playing 28 minutes a night to really have a feel. I think this is an interesting question, and this is our super chat, which thank you so much for that. Should we be concerned that Ivey hasn't been playing with the ball in his hands much? There was more versus Boston, but standing in the corner is a waste. I'd be interested to know your thoughts on that, O2, in terms of, do you feel like he's not getting enough on-ball usage so far through these 11 games?
No, that doesn't concern me. My impression of J.I.'s game is that he is at his best when he's just playing, right? And not, figuring out pass, shoot, drive, that aspect of it. I think when he's on the court with another guy who can handle the ball, you see things opened up for J.I. a bit more, and now, he could attack open lanes and get open threes. I think a mix with him works. I think we saw that last night, where he was a little bit more of an on-ball initiator late in the third quarter and has some, good moments with that. But in general, I think I don't see J.I. as a point guard. You want him, handling the ball and, pounding it and figuring stuff out. Like, to me, like, that's just not his game. I think when he has the freedom to sort of pick his spots and attack, I think he could be a lot more dynamic. And, if he can knock down threes, I think just by necessity, he's went out to be in the corner at times because who else are we going to put in the corner in certain lineups? And, I think that's fine, especially while he's working his way back. I don't have an issue with that at all. I think his usage has made sense.
And just to, the rim finishing is at 48% right now. Now, again, small sample size, not a ton of attempts, but, I do think it's important to watch with him because we've seen it be an issue. Wes broke down the per 100s. He's a few points below per 100, actually up in rebounds. I do think that is an area where he can really make an impact. He kind of has this knack for getting to the offensive boards in particular. That's the ones that stand out to me. The assists are down a little bit. The steals are up a little bit. So I do think it's been okay thus far. Dante said, just watch your substack on Jaden Ivey's defense. I like how the Pistons are allowing him to slowly get back in the rotation while developing his defense. I do think that is important to continue to mention that he is slowly getting work back in. What'd you say? Last night was the most minutes he played, and that was 21. J.I. also strikes me as a guy that needs flow and rhythm and stuff like that. And I think we will see him play better whenever he's not playing 4-minute bursts, 5-minute bursts. We talked about this at the beginning of the podcast. I think he will play better and find his flow and rhythm even more when he's playing 8 to 9 minutes at a time.
Yeah. Again, sometimes you're playing in those 3-4 minute spurts. You're just kind of hunting for ways you can make an impact in that span. And I've asked J.I. about it, but just what's the challenge of having to balance being impactful within what the team needs at that moment, but also you haven't played basketball in 11 months, so you're trying to get your own rhythm back in your own legs back under you as well. I think that's just a tough balance to find, especially when you're just playing 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. So the more he plays, I think ideally the more comfortable you see him become. You keep in mind the player he was before he got hurt, where he's averaging 17, 18 a game, shooting the three at a really high level. I thought the threes he took last night, for the most part were fine. They just didn't fall, but it's just stuff like that where as he gets into more of a rhythm, I think you're just going to see that incrementally get better.
Okay, let's go to, the last thing I want to say on J.I. I do think he plays extremely hard. And
he does play hard.
In that breakdown, I finished with 2 transition defensive examples where one of them, he's on one corner, recognizes he needs to sprint to the other side of the court and makes the play. And then he also had a steal on Jaylen Brown in transition as well. So he is playing extremely hard. All right, Derek, that was really nice of you to call us the best Piston podcast. And then you bring back this disgusting question that is going to break my heart. Derek Brown says, who's more valuable to this team, Duncan Robinson or Isaiah Stewart?
I think B-Stu is tougher to replace just with his defensive impact. With that said, we saw what this offense looked like without Duncan, and it wasn't pretty. They're both very valuable. They're both extremely valuable. But Beef-Stew's Beef-Stew. I mean, come on. You can't replace Beef-Stew.
So here's the thing though. Okay. So let's say you can't replace them. One of them's going to get injured after the trade deadline. There's nobody on the market to add to the roster. Which one terrifies you more trying to fill their role with the current roster? Because here's the thing. I want to be clear with this. Isaiah Stewart is the soul of this team. Isaiah Stewart is a better player than Duncan Robinson. Isaiah Stewart is a harder player to replace in terms of archetype and all of that. Isaiah Stewart has been one of the best defenders in the NBA this year. But this specific roster, the way it's constructed, and if you were not able to just go out and trade for player X to shoot 40%, I do think there's at least an argument that Duncan Robinson, because of how the roster is constructed, I've been saying this for a while about how valuable he is. And I also think another aspect of this is you have Paul Reed as the third center. We can't give Paul Reed all of this love. And then I do think it becomes more of a question when you could say, hey, you don't get to replace them. One of them gets removed. Which one freaks you out more that they're not there?
To me, that is a depth question because they have depth at center. They don't really just have shooting. I think in a vacuum, Stu is tougher. Just everything he gives you, that just doesn't really exist out there like it does for him on this team. You could find shooting, but because of the way this team is constructed, losing Duncan Robinson, I think, makes things a lot harder for you on offense. But I still don't know if I'm convinced because how much do they slip on defense without Isaiah Stewart? How much do they miss that additional depth there, especially if Fareed or JD were to miss time for any reason, or JD picks up two fouls or 3 fouls early, and now you're having to get creative at the center position a little bit. That's tough for me to say. That's they're both important in their own way. That's tough for me to say.
So I want to be clear. Losing either one would really bother, as far as quote unquote role players go, I think both would be damaging to Detroit making a run to the finals or whatever. I'm still keeping Isaiah Stewart. I can't not keep Isaiah Stewart on this roster. I want to see him in a playoff setting so bad, and we didn't get that chance last year. I do think to me, I think it's more of a question, as somebody says, it's a B-ball Paul appreciation question. I think it's also just the fact it's even something that you could somewhat conversate back and forth about, to me, is what still terrifies me about the roster, is the floor spacing and how Duncan Robinson's 3-point shooting is vital, because you can't if you look at total threes made, let's quick quiz, Omari. Duncan Robinson is first in 3 points made. Who do you think is second?
Just off the volume,
yes.
I would guess Cade.
Cade, yes. No, it's Cade.
I would guess Cade. Yeah, but I don't know who third is, though.
Okay, and that's 23 less than Duncan Robinson. Guess who is? So Duncan's at 71, Cade's at 48. But the whole idea here is spacing around Cade, right? So Cade can't space the floor for himself. So now who is third? Who is the first guy after Duncan Robinson that isn't Cade Cunningham?
Yeah, it's not Toby Gulf Pistons for, because he's missed so much time this season. I mean, I could be wrong there, but he's only played half. Yeah, I think he's only played half. Yeah, he's only played half of the season. I would guess.
This is an issue.
Yeah, this is an issue.
It is Caris Lavert at 29.
Wow. I was going to guess Beef Stew, but that makes sense. It would be Caris.
Well, so here's the thing, Omari. Beef Stew is a great answer because Caris Lavert is at 29 and Beef Stew is at 22. So it's not like there's that big of a gap. This is my point. You know it goes Caris at 29. So that is a 42 make difference between Duncan and Lavert. And again, Lavert is, I bet he's shooting a career high from 3. Toby is 4. When did we start calling him Toby? Tobias Harris is 4th at 26. Javonte is next. Javonte Green with 24. And then you get to Stu. And then it gets very dire when you I love this team. I love these guys. They've been incredible. I do think it is important to continue to talk about, which is why ultimately I think that's what Trajan attacks at the deadline more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean that's the clear weakness for this team on offense and just roster wise is that you don't have that other guy you could lean on. So yeah, I mean that's really the primary weakness for this team. You could say they can use more depth at power forward. If you're making one move, I think you can survive with Beef Stew filling in at the 4 with Tobias starting, but you just need shooting however you can get it.
So YouTube user says this means Trajan must get me Corey Kispert at the deadline. I'm game. Call it in. All right, let's end on this one. Caleb says, got a question for y'all. What's your favorite Christmas tradition? So for all of you that don't love when we don't talk about Pistons and we talk about our personal lives and who we are as people, because we are actually people beyond just talking about Detroit. We will not be talking anymore about Detroit Pistons for the next how many ever minutes. So Omari, do you have a favorite Christmas tradition?
I don't know about a favorite Christmas tradition. Really just kicking it with the fam and presents and all that. Look, I'm a big fan of the Charlie Brown Christmas special. Great soundtrack. So, what's that? What does that mean?
I've never watched it.
Well, you've never watched the Charlie Brown Christmas special?
No.
Have you seen any of them?
Charlie Brown?
Yeah.
No.
You've never seen Charlie Brown?
I watch real movies like The Santa Claus and Home Alone and stuff like that. And National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Bryce, these came on TV every single year for decades.
I know, I'm good.
Sit down with your kids and watch It's a Charlie Brown Christmas. It's got great music. It's got a good message. It's a good one. It's a good one.
I'm good.
That is shocking.
What are the Christmas plans this year, O2? Are you?
Yeah. So the Pistons are on the road basically the last week and a half of the season. So I will be in Portland and Sacramento. And then I'm flying from Sacramento to Detroit on the 24th, spending Christmas at home. And then on the 26th, I'm flying out to Utah for the game that night. And then I'll be in LA through New Year's. So I had the option of staying in Sacramento or Utah, for Christmas. And I'm like, I think I'm going to go home. That's a lot of flying, but I'm going to go home.
Well, I'm glad they're letting you do that. Detroit is entering their West Coast trip. So all of you Pistons fans will be watching Detroit live at 10:30 at night start times here coming up for the next couple of weeks. So we will go to my family's actually this weekend after the kids' basketball games, spend a day and a half with my family. And then we will go to my wife's family for actual Christmas for a few days. And otherwise, we're kind of just chilling, relaxing, doing our thing. Okay, great. Fly Monk 3-2. Omari should visit Bryce for Christmas. Here's the thing. Everybody says they will come visit me, and nobody ever does because you can't fly to me. You can't fly into where I live.
Where's the closest airport?
So there is one that is only 30 minutes away, but you have to fly on a little puddle jumper plane that only flies to Dallas. So like you would have to fly to Dallas and then get on a like legitimately 15 passenger plane. And
those planes are scary.
They are very scary and it's super expensive. So it ends up not being worth it. So then you fly into Wichita or Denver, which is a 4-hour drive, and you end up spending 2 full days flying in, traveling in and traveling back. And so ultimately ends up not being worth the trip. Even though I do think people would enjoy the experience of Western Kansas life.
Wait, but y'all fly to Vegas, right?
Out of Denver. We drive 4 hours to Denver and then fly.
And then you drive 4 hours back after you get back.
That's the worst part. The worst part is we get up. Here's the awful part about flying home from Vegas. We get up at 8 a.m, which sucks in Vegas, as people can imagine. And that is consider time zone, get to the airport, fly into Mountain Time, find our car, and then we drive 4 hours from the airport into Central Time Zone. So when we wake up at 8, twice, we lose 2 hours. When we wake up that morning, we're already going to skip 2 hours ahead on top of the 2-hour flight and the 4-hour drive and all of that. So YouTube user asked, does your wife go to Vegas with you? So Ranny comes with me to Vegas every other year. So she came with me this last summer. And as O2, have you ever even been has Ranny ever been with me? Have you even met Ranny in Vegas?
So what's funny is last year, I forget who I was with, but we just
you ran into her at the Cosmo, yeah.
At the Cosmo, yeah, which was super random.
But who was not with Ranny whenever you ran into her at the Cosmo?
You were not with her.
I was not with my wife because
no, you're not with her.
We go to Vegas and we do not hang out. I do basketball. I go eat with Omari. I go eat with Sam. I do my thing. She literally has friends that fly with her. And she does quote unquote Vegas stuff with her friends. And we see each other. We sleep in the same room. And that's the only time we see each other. And then we go about our business the rest of the day.
Some would say that's how you're supposed to do Vegas. So
yeah. So she spends way more money than me in Vegas. She had to get a tattoo in Vegas, which was more than the hotels. It's like we get a tattoo somewhere in Western Kansas where they're way less expensive.
Hey, a Vegas tattoo has a memory attached to it, though.
For her, I wasn't there, so I have no idea. But I will be solo this next July for Vegas. She only comes with me every other year. And Wes, Christmas, you put nothing in the chat so far. What, Wes? Did you guys get a snow already, O2, also?
Oh, it's been snow on the ground since December 1st.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's been under 35 degrees probably for 2 or 3 weeks. It's the coldest December in a minute for sure. Ice, all that.
It was 65 here. I went on a walk in shorts and a long sleeve shirt. It was so nice.
That does sound nice.
We have not sniffed snow. Wes says favorite Christmas tradition happens the weekend following Thanksgiving, driving out to the tree farm and cut down the tree. That is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Good for you. YouTube user says that's a lonely 4-hour drive back from Vegas next year. That's what podcasts are for. I enjoy those drives and I just listen to save up my podcasts. But yeah. So anyway, anything else Christmas-wise before we get out of here, O2?
Yeah, just watch Charlie Brown with the kids. They'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it.
The kids are asleep. I will not be doing
And then
that.
we can get, what not tonight. It's December 16th. You've got 9 days until Christmas.
No.
I feel like you would like it. We can revisit this topic, though. We can revisit this topic.
All right. The Pistons continue to win games, play well. First in the Eastern Conference. Watch the 1960s, how the Grinch... Okay, this podcast is over.
Oh, that's a good one. We got to talk about Christmas movies at some point. I also love Home Alone and Elf. Those are my two favorite
Elf is
Christmas
good.
movies. Elf,
So,
okay.
Here's where you're also going to hate me. Randy and I kind of like it. It is not better than the first two, but we actually enjoy watching Home Alone 3 also.
So here's the thing. I had never, Home Alone 3 had never really been in, my conscious. And I grew up watching Home Alone and Home Alone 2, religiously. Two of my favorite movies ever. Home Alone 3 I don't even know if it existed. But I read about it, recently, and I've been seeing people say it's actually not bad. So I think I'm going to check out Home Alone 3 this year for the first time.
You should. It's quality.
It feels sacrilegious because Macaulay Culkin's not in it. It's how you make Home Alone without Macaulay Culkin? It's just, you have, the off-brand kid on it? Who is this?
That is rude. You know? That is rude. That kid gets chicken pox, and he saves the whole community.
He's the off-brand Macaulay Culkin. He's the direct-to-video. Direct-to-VHS Macaulay Culkin.
His mission is so much more important than Macaulay Culkin's and his. We like the Santa Claus series, and we also like the third installment of the Santa Claus movies as well. So
okay, those are also good.
Wes says he's never watched any of Home Alone movies. That is by far the worst thing that has ever been said on this podcast, bar none. Regardless of any of my food or movie or pop culture takes,
I'm disappointed in both of you.
No, that is worse than anything I've ever said about my lack of pop culture knowledge, engagement, whatever. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Home Alone is a perfect movie. Home Alone is literally a perfect movie.
Except it makes no sense and is completely irrational.
So is Elf.
Yeah,
come on now.
Wes isn't even going to... Okay, podcast is over. Go. Everybody go to bed. Everybody go watch Home Alone and then everybody... Wes is young. It makes sense to me.
Fair.
Everybody blow up Wes's Twitter mentions tomorrow with the disaster of not respecting Home Alone. O2, take it away, my guy. My voice is about done.
All right. Big thanks to our audio producer, Robin Chan, our editor-in-chief, Nicole Avery Nichols, and big shout out to Wes Davenport, as always, and we'll talk to you all next week.